And welcome to a special edition of the Coach's Corner. I'm the coach, Dick Cox, joined by Dustin Phifer. And Dustin, we want to talk a little bit right now about some things that took place last week, NFL playoffs. A lot of trash talk going on. I know I was extremely disappointed with the way that the San Francisco 49ers came in and I think showed their rear ends by the way they acted and behaved in Charlotte. But, you know, poetic justice. They go to Seattle, get it handed to them, and they get a dose of their own medicine back. But I think Sherman was a little bit overboard. And to be honest with you, I am so sick of all this trash talking going on. I think sports need to be cleaned up.
You're right. I mean, it's definitely getting a little out of hand. I mean, like you said, the 49ers coming here, they definitely weren't gracious in winning. You could see some of the stuff they were doing. They were taunting our guys. That made us get some penalties. And that's on our guys not to respond back. But again, it's people instigating stuff. And then you go out, then the 49ers play the Seahawks, which is a rival game. They play each other 2 times a year. They don't like each other. And you have a close game like that. Richard Sherman makes a play at the end, and instead of just celebrating with his team, goes and does something to Crabtree on the 49ers. And, that's stuff that, it's okay to have some jabs in there, but there's right times to do it and wrong times to do it. And to do it on camera like that with Aaron Andrews after the game, definitely I think he was caught up in the moment. I think Richard Sherman's a very intelligent guy who went to Stanford. I mean, a very smart guy. So I don't want to label him just, as a thug or as something just because he made one comment. I think he was just a heated moment. He finally came out a couple days later and apologized. But you're right, Coach. I mean, it's just stuff that can't happen in the game and can't happen on camera after the game. I mean, it's just something that, like you said, you're role models basically. So if you see younger kids watching you on TV, they see that kind of stuff, then it makes them think that they can do it when they're out there playing in their Pee Wee leagues or their youth leagues, and that's stuff that we don't want to see. So it definitely needs to be cleaned up, and I think, players need to know that, hey, look, I'm about to go on camera after a heated game to go to the Super Bowl. I just need to know to say stuff about my team, talk positive about my team, and just try to move on. And I know that's tough to do when you're in the heat of the moment. We get in the heat of the moment sometimes. But, again, you're right. That's stuff that needs to be looked at and cleaned up a little bit.
Well, I'm going to go a step further. An ugly situation last night in Spartanburg County in a high school basketball game to where two teams, a team that I formerly coached, Bowling Springs High School, was taking on Gaffney High School, who was a team that I had some heated games with and had some things that went on when I was coaching against them that were not positive things, and I'll have a huge brawl in the basketball game. And again, both benches were thrown out of the game, punches were thrown, fans came on the court, and it was very ugly, an ugly scene last night from the situation where, it kind of panned out where they finished the game. One team had 4 players, one had 3. And I think the sorry example that our pro athletes are setting right now has filtered down to all this trash talk going on that these high school athletes see, well, hey, these pro players can act like that. People say it's cool. I can do it too. And I think that it is a big black eye. Now, what took place in Spartanburg County last night on high school sports and what these sorry role models are doing at the professional level is filtering over into our high schools.
You're right. It does trickle down. I mean, again, it's just something that you have to know. If you're a professional athlete, you're being watched by millions on TV, whether you're on radio, whatever it is. Your voice can be heard from whoever is paying attention. So it's just something that you have to know to be smarter than that, be better than that. And again, when something happens like last night happens in a high school environment, regardless of what level it happens on, professional, high school, college, it's not about sports anymore. It's about the safety of players, the safety of fans. It's about, just the respect. And I mean, that goes well beyond sports, and it's something that cannot happen. I mean, who knows if a player could have got hurt last night? Who knows if a referee, somebody who's just working.
Or how about a young kid fan in the stands that went to the game?
A young kid, somebody who's just working the game. I mean, anything could have happened last night. And for me, I'm very shocked that they even finished the game, because when something like that happens, especially on a high school level, I wouldn't have been shocked to see them just call the game completely right there so nothing else escalates. But they got it under control. They ejected the benches. They continued the game on short, one team short of players. But again, that's a scary situation, Coach, especially like you said, if you're there in person and you don't have anything to do with it, but you can't control the situation that's going on with you. You don't know what's going to happen. And the way the world is today I'm not trying to get political here, but the way the world is today with the shootings that go on in schools, the shootings that go on around the country, is just something that you don't want to see something escalate because you never know what will happen.
Well, and I honestly think that this could have escalated escalated and started back this summer. And again, I'm not calling names. People can fill in the blanks and all, but one of the players involved was actually had a big announcement this summer about going to play what school he was going to play at, and actually came out and had a University of South Carolina hat and tried to trick everybody thinking he was going there, and then throws it on the floor and disrespects South Carolina and puts on a Georgetown hat and turned the total thing into a classless farce. I think it was an embarrassment to his school. I think that his school and his coach should have stepped up in this case, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases, some people think it's cute. These things are cute, but I think these announcements with these hats and early things like that lead these high school athletes to believe that there's some kind of God instead of a high school student that's going to be a Joe Blow when you get to the next level, that everybody's going to be a big star. And I think the coaches have got to step up and control their players, and I think this did not happen this summer. Therefore, this guy has pretty much think that, he walks on water, and something spilled over last night.
Well, it's definitely something that needs to be looked at with these announcements. I mean, listen, I'm all for a college kid who works hard and earns a scholarship to a school to have an announcement to make his school choice. If he has 3 hats there, that's great, but you don't go and disrespect the schools that you don't choose. You don't disrespect the coaching staffs that take their time out to come into your home and say, hey, we appreciate the player that you are, we appreciate your academics, and that's why I want you to go to school here. That's respect. For those people to come in your home and want you like that, you should show respect to them even if you don't go to school there. I mean, that's such an honor. And so that's things that we need to look at. Again, I'm okay with an announcement, but there's no need to go and stomping on hats, turn it into a wrestling scene, any kind of, where you talk junk, anything like that. That on my end, that's completely stupid, because again, like I said, if I'm going to college and I have 3 hats there, and all 3 of those coaching staffs had the respect and the honor to show me to come to my home and want me, I'm going to show respect to all of them regardless of where I go to school. And that's something that kids need to think about. This is not a given. You worked hard to earn this, but again, you can do something just as stupid quickly and have that scholarship taken away. So don't take it for granted. You need to enjoy this, enjoy the ride. I know you're a young kid, whoever does it, but enjoy the ride and realize what you're about to do. You're about to earn a great education and play basketball for college, and don't let it get out of hand. I mean, again, you have to appreciate what you're getting the opportunity to do.
And I tell you, some of this stuff even went on when I was coaching. This was 7-8 years ago, where I actually had a team show up for a summer league game that purchased some of our Bowling Springs T-shirts, took them out to the center of the floor before we played, ripped them up, threw them on the ground, stomped on them before the game even started. Same team comes back to our place for a regular season game before we even play, stomps on our logo out there, disrespects our court and like that. And I think these things have actually gotten worse. I mean, I've seen recently fights in football, baseball, basketball at the high school level in Spartanburg County. This has got to be cleaned up. I mean, the high school league, with this thing coming up now, I hope that they send a message to these teams that this crap has got to be stopped. Number one, coaches, if you don't stop it, I'd love to see the coaches get suspended. If their players are doing this kind of stuff, and even if it needs to go as high as administration, something's got to be done to clean up the high school game. The professional game is setting a sorry example. But again, coaches can step up. I know sometimes when you got pro players who make more money than their coaches, it's hard to do anything. But a high school coach or administration can step up and do something and put a stop to it, and this has got to be done.
You're right. And for me, I mean, again, the professional level does, where everybody sees them when they do this kind of stuff, it does provide a bad example. But I'm not just going to put it on professional sports and professional athletes. I mean, it's such a big topic to go into that we can't talk about it all in one show. But it's everybody as a whole that needs to take a look at themselves, Coach. It starts from youth leagues. If you're a parent of a kid and you have them out of control playing football at 6 or 7, thinking that they're playing for the Super Bowl, or thinking that they're the best kid out there and filling their heads with stuff. If we see it. There's a reality show on TV right now called Friday Night Tykes, where there's a youth football league, 8 and 9-year-olds, and the coaches are out there cursing at them, acting like this is a Super Bowl, screaming at them, making them run laps until they throw up. I mean, this is all on TV on a show. So it starts from when it's a young kid going up, and like I said, I can't get into all of it, but everybody needs to take a look in the mirror, whether it's the kid itself doing it, the professional athlete itself doing it, the parents doing it, whoever it is. You just need to realize that there's more to this than just a game. It's just a game. It's not life. And like I said, Coach, when stuff like that last night carries over from a high school basketball game and goes into a fight, it's not about sports anymore. It's about, what if somebody gets hurt? What if somebody gets killed? I mean, stuff like that happens these days, and anytime a situation like that happens, I say it again, you never know how it's going to escalate. So why even take the chance and put it there? So people definitely need to be accountable and they need to look in the mirror.
You are watching the Coach's Corner tonight, brought to you by the Westside Club, brought to you by the Beacon Drive-In, also by Concoction Ministries and Larry's Trophies. This is Dustin Phifer. I'm Coach Dick Cox, and we're talking a little bit about sportsmanship right now, and all with an incident that took place at Bowling Springs High School between Gaffney High School, Spartanburg, and Bowling Springs High School in Spartanburg County. You know, I want to go a step further right now. You know, I'm a big South Carolina graduate supporter, fan. We had an incident that took place this past week that Frank Martin had to go back and issue an apology to a player and to the fans that last week in a game he got caught up in emotion and just cuss the living daylights out of one of his players and just belittled him so bad in front of the fans there that he had to, number one, go back and apologize to the player, but number two, apologize to the fans sitting behind the bench that heard what he said. There's no place in sports for that either.
No, there's definitely not, and that's why I say that there's a line that you can't cross. We all know that college coaches are going to be hard on players. Most college coaches curse at players. They get in their face, and that's okay sometimes, but there's a line that you can't cross. When you cross that line and you're basically belittling the player and you're badgering them and you're making them feel like they don't even belong to be where they belong, that's when you're crossing that line. If you're yelling at them or cursing at them to teach them something about the game, but you're not belittling them, that's different. So there's always that line that you can cross. And again, there it was where Coach Martin got caught up in the moment. He probably didn't mean to do that, but the emotions took over, and we've seen him have some tantrums before at Kansas State. So, and he had to go back and apologize, and it's good that he did come out and admit that he was wrong. So again, there's always that fine line that you don't want to cross, Coach, and you probably knew that as a coach, where you can take it with your players. Of course, you're going to be hard on them, but there's that line that you don't want to cross, and we see it all the time. You just can't go over that line.
Well, I never cuss my players. I never, in our book, my players were not going to use profanity around me. I did not. I promised them my coaching staff would not use that towards them. I didn't want to hear it in return. But there were times, I'll tell you, I got mad. I kicked trash cans and I did that. But it was not done outside for everybody and the fans to see. We had a locker room, and there were times that I went off on them in the locker room. I'll admit that there, though. But there is a time and place. You do not sit there in front of parents, in front of fans, and belittle kids like that. Or should I say young people, not kids, but young people like that, though. I just think there is a time and place, and again, it goes back. There's a lot of things right now, from the fight last night to the playoffs with the mouthing and taunting and things going on, now to coach getting a little bit upset and out of thing, that these are things that need to be cleaned up.
They definitely need to be cleaned up. And again, it just goes back to, number one, you know, if you're caught up in the emotions and you know that it's something, like you said, that's out in the open in public, maybe just take a step back and say, this isn't the right place. I mean, and again, that's a hard thing to do when you're in the heat of the moment, but that's something that you got to tell yourself inside. Maybe Coach Martin says, hey, you know, maybe I'll just take this to the locker room after the game and I'll talk to this player. But you don't do it where fans can hear it, where everybody sees it, and it makes a big mess. And again, that's just something where people got to take a look in the mirror. You know, same thing with Richard Sherman, like we talked about at the start of the show. Maybe after the game, his team's going to the Super Bowl. Maybe he, in his side, he takes a second and says, you know what? I know that me and this guy had a rivalry and a feud going on, but there's no reason for me to hop on camera right here and talk trash. Maybe I just need to get in here and talk about my team and talk about how we're going to the Super Bowl and celebrate. And he didn't do that. So you just got to really, it's hard, but you really got to tell yourself, this isn't the right time or place. Let's wait for another day to do it, or let's not do it at all. And that's just something that everybody needs to take a look at, regardless of whether you're a kid, a college student, a professional athlete, whatever. You just always got to know when to make that better judgment.
You are watching the Coach's Corner, coming to you live from Time Warner Arena. He's Dustin Phifer. I'm the Coach Dick Cox. Again, our show is brought to you by the Beacon Drive-In, by the Westside Club, by Larry's Trophies, and by Concoction Ministries right now. You mentioned the Super Bowl. Well, the two of us, I don't guess we'll get together again before they play the Super Bowl, so let's quickly talk a little bit about that. You have got probably the best offensive team in the NFL playing the best defensive team in the NFL. How do you see this game panning out?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's sad that the Panthers aren't in it because they had a great season, but man, is this not a matchup that you look for in a Super Bowl? Like you said, the best offensive team against the best defensive team. This was my pick before the year started. There are two best teams in the league, if you ask me, and it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. I personally favor the Denver Broncos. I think that the Broncos really have it rolling. Peyton Manning has been playing well even in the playoffs. He's got more weapons. You know, Seattle played a good game against the 49ers, but they've only got a couple of receivers. Denver can go up to 4 or 5 5 receivers. So that's something that's going to be hard to watch. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Seattle's going to be in it right away, and it could go either way. But again, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. I think they're playing well, and we saw it against the Patriots last week. Their defense stepped up as well. So I'm looking forward to this game as a fan. I just think it's going to be a great game. I think it could come down to the last possession, and I think this is another chance for Peyton Manning to finally get over that hump and get the second ring so people will stop talking about it, and maybe he'll have his ball the ball in his hands on the last possession, and the world will be watching. It's going to be fun. What you think?
All right. Before I give you my take on it, though, I want to go back to something that took place in the playoff game. Is Bill Belichick a whiner, or do you think that Wes Welker was deliberately trying to hurt somebody?
I think I don't think that Wes Welker was trying to hurt anybody at all. They actually showed some more plays from that game where the Patriots were doing the same thing. All they're trying to do there is just run a pickoff of a defensive player so they can get their receiver open. They're not going to hit him intentionally. They're not trying to do it on purpose. It's all an offensive scheme, and the Patriots use it all the time. And I'm sure Wes Welker ran that same play when he played for the Patriots. So I don't want to hear that at all. I think that's ridiculous.
And, again, I had the opportunity of interviewing Bill Belichick when the Patriots came to Charlotte. I think he's a whiner. I think he's a jerk. I think you're a loser, Bill. You're getting too old.
He's a great coach. But, why? You just got beat. The Denver Broncos beat you fair and square. So why not just go and take that loss like a man? There's no reason to go out there and call somebody out, especially, I think, Welker, maybe he's just mad because he left the Patriots and he's not there anymore. I just think that's stupid.
Bill, maybe you should have sent a spy to go see that play where you want to know what's coming, though. But my take on the game is, number one, I'm extremely happy for John Fox. Absolutely. You and I both stood behind John Fox, even though Mr. Vygotsky on our staff was not a John Fox fan, though. We all agreed that the main problem with the Panthers at that time was the general manager, which we see now that he's gone, that this team is improving, though. But I was a huge John Fox fan. I think he's a class guy. I always enjoyed talking with him at training camp. People in Spartanburg love seeing him at Gerhardt's. So, again, I am tickled for him to be in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning's a class act. I like Russell Wilson, too. He's a good quarterback, too, though. But I really like and would like to see John Fox get a Super Bowl ring, because I really think that in a lot of ways he got dealt a bad hand his final year in Charlotte. He's a good coach. He was dealt a hand his last year in Charlotte that he could not win with. Did the best of the situation. He handled it with class. A lot of people said he wouldn't get another job. Last laughs on him. He's in the Super Bowl right now. But I honestly think with Peyton Manning's experience with the weapons he's got, Seattle, not been to the Super Bowl in a long time, got a lot of new players in there. I really think that the Broncos will win this thing by double digits.
Well, I agree with you that I do think the Broncos are going to win the game. I think the two key matchups to watch are, number one, the best secondary in the NFL for the Seahawks going against that passing attack of the Broncos. That's going to be their best chance to slow them down. But I think the other thing that could slow the Peyton Manning down is Marshawn Lynch. Probably one of the best running backs in the league, who really steps up. Even when they know that he's going to get the ball and he's got 3 or 4 guys on him, he can pick up those extra yardage. So if they can keep pounding the ball with him and use that time of possession to keep Peyton Manning off the field, that's going to be a key advantage. So those are two things to watch. And again, I think it's going to be a knockdown drag. I think it's going to be a one-possession game, close all the way through, but I'm going to take the Broncos in the end.
All right, last question right here is, are we going to play this game in the freaking snow? Now, why in the world this thing has been played in New York? I know I've been watching them shovel snow out of the place. I've been kind of keeping up because on my cell phone, I don't know why, but with all my cities I go to, New York City somehow keeps flipping up right there, that some people accuse me of having that plan to go to the Super Bowl if the Panthers were there, though. But it's been 17, 18 degrees all week in New York. What a poor decision to play this thing. I think they're calling for the forecast for possible 80% chance of some type of frozen precipitation on Super Bowl day right there. Is that going to affect Peyton Manning? But why on God's little green earth would you do something stupid and play the most important game of the season in that kind of conditions when you've either played it in sunny California or Florida or in a dome stadium? Money and politics.
Well, first off, I agree with you. I don't think it should be played here. The whole thing about the Super Bowl is that it's played on a neutral field in neutral conditions. Well, you can say this is a neutral field and that both teams are going to be playing in the conditions, but the thing you got to think about is Seattle plays in some type of rain, some type of something every game of the year, so they could have an advantage if there is some precipitation. Now, Denver plays in the cold as well, so it may not hurt them as much, but it's just one of those things. I don't want those factors to interfere. I want it to be on a neutral field where there's no weather involved. You never know if it's going to rain somewhere. somewhere, but where there's no weather involved and really just the two best teams can go at it. So, again, I don't agree with it, but like you said, one word, money. They know they can get money from having the parties up there in New York, having the people come in, even though it's in New Jersey, but right there by New York. The money that they can bring in for this event, they're going to bring in a ton. So that's one thing that the NFL is doing it for. But again, I'm with you, Coach. I'm cool with keeping it in Miami, keeping it in San Diego, keeping it in those sunny spots where both teams can just really go at it, and it's about the football. It's not about the conditions around it.
The commissioner has said he's going to sit in the stands for the game. Will somebody please hit him in the head with a snowball and knock some sense into him that this is not the route to go? Let's go back to either a dome or a sunny stadium and not make this thing where people got to sit out. Let's play the thing in Green Bay if you want to play it in that kind of conditions.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see this much in the future. You may see it down the road again, say one every 10 to 15 years because New York's such a big money market. But this isn't going to be a every year thing where they start saying, "Hey, let's try out other cold cities." That's not going to happen. They're going to keep it in the sunny cities, and maybe once every 15 years they'll go back to New York to get that money. But they're not going to branch out to other cold cities. I think they know they just can't take that chance of having it be like you said. Right now, like you said, I see the highs 33 and the lows 20-something. They can't take that chance of having a blizzard on a Super Bowl. That would be a disaster. So I don't think you see them doing this in the future too much.
Well, that's going to wrap it up. Just want to go back and say high school season winding down. Let's keep it at high school basketball and not basket brawl. Again, I'm going to be really curious to see what the high school league does on this because it's going to be really interesting because Gaffney, one of the teams, is one of the top-ranked teams in the state of South Carolina, played for some state championships. Most cases like this, a team probably would be kicked out of the playoffs. But we know in South Carolina, it's a political world. We'll see what happens. Will the South Carolina High School League step up and make a statement on what took place to put a stop to this? Or are we going to see good old Southern boy politics step up, slaps on the wrist, no message be sent to the players, and this continue on?
Well, we'll see. I mean, my closing thought is, and this is coming from a guy, Coach, who loves every sport and is so passionate about sports. It's one of my passions in life, but it's cliche, but I'm going to say it. It's only a game. So let's just remember that. Let's remember that we don't want to get anybody hurt. We don't want to get any melees like that happening again. It's only a game. Let's go out with sportsmanship and let's have a good time and play that game without having to cause fights or get anybody injured.
Again, you have been watching the Coach's Corner coming to you live from Time Warner Cable Arena with Dustin Phifer. I'm Coach Dick Cox. Our show has been brought to you tonight by the Beacon Drive-In, by the West Side Club, by Larry's Trophies, and by Concoction Ministries. We'll be back with you for our next show following the game on February the 8th with the Spurs. I couldn't think of them, the San Antonio Spurs. Until then, enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy your week off. I'm going to be a bum next week. And happy birthday to Dustin, whose birthday's Wednesday. And hopefully our colleague Brittany did well tonight in the Miss Chesney competition, though. Hopefully we'll have an announcement on that next week. Until then, good night, everybody.